How you doing, everybody? Brian Sr. here. If you are a true blue, red-blooded, liberty-loving, Bible-thumping, gun-toting, truth-seeking, fed up with the status quo, tyranny-smashing, tossing the tea overboard, American patriot, agent of change, then you are in the right place. We're going to put our heads together. We're going to do what Americans do best. We're going to solve problems. We're going to educate one another. We're going to encourage one another as we lift up our families, our friends, our neighbors, and our country. The American dream lives here. All right, today we have another interview. We have an interview with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Richard Bartlett. Dr. Richard Bartlett. I met him at the Reawaken America tour. He had a lot of interesting stuff to say. He's got what he calls a silver bullet to battle COVID. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and open up with prayer like we like to do here at Political Truths 832. Dear Lord, we love you. We praise you. We're so grateful that you brought us into your family, Lord. We just want to be more and more like you each and every day, Lord. Give us strength, give us wisdom, give us courage to take on this fight, to return this country back to your glory, Lord, to point out your glory. We just want to have wisdom to take on this fight, Lord. So empower us, strengthen us, and guide us, Lord. We just want to please you, and we do this in Jesus' precious holy name. Amen. So as I was saying before, Dr. Richard Bartlett, I believe he's out of Midland, Texas. It might not be Midland, but somewhere in Texas. I met him at the Reawaken America tour a while back. Excuse me. Really cool guy. Has a lot to say. He was talking about his protocol that he has for treating COVID. And apparently there is a 0% mortality rate if you get on his regimen. There's been a lot of stuff going on with the COVID vax mandates. And it's so crazy because we don't need vaccination mandates. There are therapeutics that are very, very successful. Go into it, look at it, go to America's Frontline Doctors, go to what this gentleman's talking about is budesonideworks.com. You can go there and check that out. He's got so much cool stuff to talk about, talking about some personal experiences with patients, some people that were near, just about ready to be kicked off the ventilator, and they started using his medicine that he's recommended. It's not his medicine, but it's been around for a while. Most of it is over the counter, but in the form that he likes to administer it, it's not over the counter, so that's kind of a gray area. But anyway, he's had a great success rate with this. I'll go ahead and let him explain it to you. He can do it way better than I can. So anyway, this is Dr. Richard Bartlett from Midland, Texas, and I saw him at the Reawaken America tour. So Brian Sr., Political Truths, 832, I am out. How you doing, everybody? Brian Sr., Political Truths, 832. I'm here today with Dr. Richard Bartlett. Excuse me. We're out here in Anaheim, California at a conference here. I always forget what they're calling it.
Reawaken America?
That's it. Reopen America. Thank you very much. I wrote it down earlier, too. So anyway, this is a lot of like-minded individuals gathering together for our freedom and for our spiritual awareness, and just to come together as a country for a common goal. So Dr. Richard Bartlett, what brought you here today? How did you hear about this conference? And tell us a little bit about your background and what you offer to the people out there.
Brian, thank you for inviting me. My name is Dr. Richard Bartlett, and early in the pandemic, I presented a strategy to treat COVID that is successful using an inhaled steroid called Budesonide with an antibiotic and aspirin, and many times ivermectin can also help when you add that. But the Budesonide was what I coined the phrase the silver bullet for COVID back in a July 2nd interview on America Can We Talk. And when I called it that, that really got people's attention. That video went viral, 5 million views, and in 2 weeks, YouTube pulled it because it was dangerous. Apparently, in retrospect, it was dangerous to the virus. And apparently it was dangerous to an agenda, because Oxford University completed the STOIC trial looking at budesonide, this generic, readily available, inexpensive medicine used against COVID, and they found that 90% of hospitalizations, ER visits, and even urgent care visits could be prevented with early use of budesonide against COVID. Isn't that big news?
What month was that? Did that come out?
So I presented this information in that interview that went viral July 2nd of 2020.
Wow.
That was when the hospitals were overwhelmed.
Right.
Boy, if they would have just considered that, how many lives could have been prevented? How many hospitalizations could have been avoided?
Right.
Even if they live, that's an expensive hotel stay in a hospital. Even if they live, do they have some disability after the fact? Many people do. Some people are pulmonary cripples after they get off the ventilator for a long time.
Right.
But you know what? This is something that's just intuitive. It makes sense. And you know what? Oxford University did the STOIC trial. That's a randomized controlled trial. That's the gold standard for scientific medical fact. And you know what, Brian? That wasn't the only one. If people are confused, I mean, if Anthony Fauci, he looked up the STOIC trial and he's like, I don't know, he could go to another randomized control trial that Oxford University did, called the Principal Trial, which found the same thing, that this is overwhelmingly successful at helping people recover from COVID. And it is, let me tell you how safe it is. This medicine's been out for over 25 years. It's generic. It's been used on 2-pound preemie babies in the NICU. That's about as delicate a human as there is on the planet. Right. We don't blink. We don't bat an eye. We're not worried about whether this is going to hurt a person. This is used by millions of elementary school age kids who come home with their rolling backpacks every day, and they get their budesonide out and they unscrew the top and put it in the little reservoir of their nebulizer and push the on button, and they do a breathing treatment for 3 minutes while they're watching Scooby-Doo. And Brian, have you ever heard about a disaster with budesonide on the mainstream media and evening news?
No. What is a major use for that before the COVID-19? Was it asthma or something? Or?
Yes, because asthma by definition is an inflammatory disease of the respiratory tract.
Right.
And so, but you know what COVID is? It's a super inflammatory disease of the respiratory tract. As a matter of fact, it's like this medicine was made for this pandemic. Let me explain. The cytokine storm, once this virus starts, it binds to ACE receptors in the lungs. And that's the doorway into the body so the virus can replicate and multiply. And then after that, it will then trigger a cytokine storm. And that's where these inflammatory chemicals are released from the lining of the respiratory tract. Those are the poisons that actually cause all the symptoms, the shortness of breath, the kidney failure, the fatigue, the body aches, the fever, are all because of those inflammatory chemicals. Those chemicals are interleukin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 13, 15, tumor necrosis factor, cyclooxygenase, leukotrienes. Guess what budesonide blocks the release of right at the source? Interleukin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 13, 15, tumor necrosis factor, cyclooxygenase, leukotrienes. It's a perfect match.
Yeah.
And you know what? Oxford University, the oldest university in the English-speaking world, since 1096, with 72 Nobel Prize laureates. That might be a reliable source of information, and they're not just saying it, they actually proved it with 2 randomized controlled trials.
Wow.
I'm saying this is the biggest kept secret during this whole pandemic, that we had something that was an effective treatment strategy the whole time. So if they tell you that there is not, that the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed, well, tell them the good news, that we have something that can prevent 90% of hospitalizations according to Oxford University. Proven. Did you know they stopped that STOIC trial early?
Really? What was the reasoning behind that?
Because it was unethical for them to continue the trial and let people who had COVID and get a placebo and potentially die, not be given something that could save their life that was proven to be, hey, they're worried about those people in the trial. Why aren't we worrying about the people in the hospital right now that it's been proven? Why aren't we worrying about the people that get tested positive for COVID right now? Why are we not hearing that that's a valid option? When someone has COVID, they should be offered this.
Well, I've got kind of a little crazy theory. I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory or not, but tell me what you think of it, if it's out there in left field or not. I did a little research on the Emergency Use Act. And according to the Emergency Use Act, and I can't quote it verbatim. If
there's an effective treatment strategy, they can't get an emergency use authorization by the FDA.
So they took those tools out of the doctor's hands so they could develop the vaccine, in my view.
Well, they did immediately have the pharmacy board in Texas immediately sent letters to all the pharmacists saying, don't fill hydroxychloroquine for COVID. And then we recently have pharmacists that have gotten letters from the FDA saying, don't give ivermectin for COVID, not for anything else, but for COVID.
Yeah.
And you know what? They haven't done that with budesonide, but what the best that they could do was when Anthony Fauci recruited an A-list actor, Matthew McConaughey, to do a hit job on the internet, where Matthew throws him the softball question, well, what about budesonide for COVID? And Anthony Fauci says, well, in reality, Matthew, it's just a placebo. It doesn't really help. It might make them feel better, but it doesn't really help. Hey, that's not what Oxford University says.
Yeah.
Oxford University actually had science to back it up. Did Anthony Fauci didn't offer a randomized controlled trial or scientific evidence? Anthony, if you're listening, get your crayon out, and I'm going to speak slowly about something called science. That Stoic trial, get someone to read that to you, and 90% of hospitalizations, ER visits, and urgent care visits could be prevented with just one of the ingredients that some people in their mind might call a silver bullet for COVID. But I'm saying it's good news, and we want to take care of people. I like Americans. I want them to live. I'm for people. I'm against the virus, and this is dangerous information for the virus. But it is great news for people who have loved ones suffering from COVID. And this is not a random thought. This is proven by Oxford University through randomized controlled trials. 2 of them, the Stoic trial, the Principle trial, and Anthony, if you're listening, put that in your nebulizer and smoke it.
Well, he's got to take off his 3 masks, but there is always hope for Dr. Fauci because he's going to say the exact opposite thing of what he said last week. So he may actually, like a broken clock is right twice a day, he might actually come around to this at some point.
Well, I haven't heard him apologize to the public.
No.
You know, if 90% of hospitalizations could be prevented, and we had at one point 500,000 Americans that have died, that's over 500,000 moms and dads and husbands and wives that died, and
yes.
and most of them die in the hospital in the United States because we have hospitals. If someone's very sick, they're put in the hospital.
Right.
And so, does this mean that Anthony Fauci did a hit job on the internet and suppressed a life-saving medicine, budesonide? Does this mean that 450,000, 90% of 500,000 lives of moms and dads and husbands and wives could have been saved if it wouldn't have been shot down? Does this mean that he on purpose did not promote something that could have saved 450,000 American moms and dads and husbands and wives? Does this mean that other people who does this mean other people have blood on their hands that have spoke against budesonide for COVID? Did Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization let people know about budesonide for COVID, or other leaders? What about the CDC? Why haven't they promoted budesonide for COVID after the Stoic trial and the Principle trial? Are they responsible possibly for withholding life-saving information and medication?
Those are all great questions, and nobody seems to be asking those but a few of us that are actually curious. The media has absolutely zero curiosity in this, and I've had some friends that have had it. I had my brother-in-law had the COVID, and he took the ivermectin. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Yeah,
ivermectin, and it helped him He was over it in about a week. He had very mild symptoms. I had another friend that had COVID, and he had to go to like 5 or 6 different doctors before they would even do anything for him, which to me, I don't know of any disease or condition in human history that we've treated in that fashion, where they just say, okay, listen, we know you have it, we know it's dangerous, just go home and, eat an orange, take it easy, stay away from people, and if you feel like you might die, go ahead and come on back. Then we'll take care of it.
Yeah, the problem is socialized medicine is where the government knows and tells you what's best for your health,
right,
without ever seeing you, and they use a broad brush and everybody's treated the same. And they know more about your what's good for your health than your personal physician, who knows your family history, your social history, your past medical history, who knows what you're allergic to, who knows what surgeries you've had. We've never had anything like that before, and we still don't legally. In the United States, the American Medical Association Code of Medical Ethics says that every doctor has a responsibility to tell the patient and the patient's family about every treatment option and the risk and benefit of every treatment option. Did you know that the Joint Commission requires every hospital to train every member of their staff to tell the patient and the patient, to include the patient and the patient's family in every treatment decision, and tell them the risk and benefit of every treatment option? Did you know that there are people who are dropping their loved ones off at hospitals and not hearing from the doctors and nurses, and watching the evening news and finding out that their loved one died that way? Yeah. Did you know that there are people who don't hear from the doctor that's taking care of their husband in the ICU for sometimes a week at a time? Did you know that people are asking for budesonide for their loved ones in the hospital based on the evidence that it helps with COVID in the STOIC trial, the Principle trial, but also evidence that's posted at the NIH database? In 2017, the Saudi Journal of Anesthesia has an article that shows that nebulized budesonide for patients on the ventilator improves oxygen in their bloodstream. That's a good thing. Stops scarring in the lungs. That's a good thing. It reverses the swelling or edema in the lungs. That's a good thing. And finally, suppresses and stops the release of the cytokines, which are causing all the disease process. I'm saying that's already out there. And people are asking for that, and doctors and hospitals are refusing it because it's not CDC approved. Well, what does the CDC approve? They approve remdesivir still, even though the World Health Organization in November said, we looked at 11,000 patients of 480 hospitals worldwide and over 20 nations, and we see that remdesivir doesn't change the mortality rate at all. In plain English, that means it doesn't save one life. But they're recommending that, but they can't recommend budesonide that would prevent 90% of hospitalizations, ER visits, and is inexpensive, readily available at every pharmacy. I'm telling you, there are health leaders in India and certain provinces that said use ivermectin, use budesonide, and when we were told that there was a disaster unfolding in India, within 1 week, the numbers plummeted. Guess what? We didn't hear about that, and we certainly didn't hear about them promoting budesonide and ivermectin in India. I think those two facts are connected, and I would like to encourage people to look at budesonideworks.com. Budesonideworks.com has valuable information. If your doctor won't help you, you can go to the providers tab, and there are doctors in many states that are signed up with their phone number there that will do telemedicine and take care of your loved one.
So how does someone go about getting a prescription for this? Is it prescription or is it over the counter? It's prescription, I would imagine.
Good question. So I have told congressmen, U.S. congressmen, and state senators in U.S. senators' offices that budesonide actually is over the counter as a nose spray. The exact same chemical, the exact same medicine, so safe that it doesn't even require a prescription. But it is requiring a prescription for the nebulizer machine. And so I've told them, make this over-the-counter medicine and over-the-counter medicine. And that seems like a good idea because many times the hospitals and doctors are the obstruction between the patient and their life-saving medicine. Why do I say life-saving medicine? Well, I kind of like facts and science. And I like randomized controlled trials proving things like the STOIC trial. the principal trial, or the report, the article in the Saudi Journal of Anesthesia that's at the NIH database. I'm saying, hey, follow the science. The science is settled.
That's very interesting. So if I hear you right, you said the nebulizer is what's preventing people from getting the treatment, not the actual budesonide. Did I say that right?
So budesonide is a medication that is made for a nebulizer machine, and the budesonide made for nebulizers in a respule is what it's called. That's pre-mixed, pre-measured, that's generic and readily inexpensive. Requires a prescription, and so all you got to do is tear off the top of the lid, squirt it in the machine, and push the on button. But you have to have a prescription for the medicine in that form.
Okay.
But you should get a prescription for that. It's safe. It's super effective. The reason I recommend a nebulizer machine is that there are studies showing that if you use an inhaler like they did with the principal trial and the STOIC trial, sometimes you only get 10% of the medicine at the target tissue in the lungs. But using a nebulizer that makes a mist, a nebulizer can cost like $40-something for a brand new one, and you get to keep it. And if you use a nebulizer that makes a mist, there's evidence that you get at least 60% of the medicine to the target tissue. If you're needing a medicine that could save your life, I'd say you want to get as much of it as you can to the target tissue.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's what kind of pushback did you get for this? I've heard stories about doctors having their licenses threatened and pharmacists that would just absolutely refuse to fill prescriptions. Did you run into any of that?
All that and more.
Yeah.
I had several attacks by anonymous complaints from doctors to the medical board trying to attack my license, my credibility, my livelihood, and those have been put down as frivolous, invalid, bogus, repeatedly because of the facts. And now those people, where are my accusers now? They're shaking in terror because they've attacked me and they've been proven wrong over and over. And Oxford University has proven that this is an effective strategy. And, we have had people who were, I'll tell you some success stories. I got a call on a Thursday night from a husband saying, my wife is on the ventilator, 100% oxygen, and she's been in the hospital only for 4 days, and she's on high pressure, and her oxygen saturation is only at 80%, and the doctors at the hospital have called me 3 times wanting me to give a hospice order to let her die.
Wow.
And I have told them no, and they pushed back, and the hospital told me, this is what the husband told me, that the hospital told them, well, we will get a court order from a judge and we will pull the tube out of your wife whether you like it or not.
Wow.
And he pushed back with an attorney and he demanded budesonide for his wife as a nebulizer treatment. And in 1 week she was off the ventilator.
Wow.
In 2 weeks she came home with the family.
That's amazing.
And this is a lady who at 12 years old was caught in a house fire at 12 years old and required supplemental oxygen at home for the last 40 years on and off. She had bad lungs before she got COVID.
Wow.
And so if it can help her, as long as your loved one's breathing, there's still hope. And this is the treatment that made the difference for this woman. And let me tell you, the hospital doctors stopped the remdesivir, stopped the IV dexamethasone. They stopped all treatments just because they were going to show the family.
Yeah.
We'll show you.
Yeah.
You want budesonide? We'll show you. We told you she was about to die. And guess what? She just celebrated a birthday with her grandchildren yesterday and sent me a picture of her with all the family.
That's awesome. That's got to be heartwarming for you. I mean, that's just got to make your heart explode.
That's why I'm here, Brian.
Yeah.
Because people need to hear the truth, that they're not helpless or hopeless. That's why on my own dime I'm here today. I'm not selling any books. I'm not looking for my name to be promoted. I don't want anyone to die that doesn't have to die. And we're not helpless or hopeless. And I'm getting heartbreaking stories at the same time of people who are being denied and being walked on by the doctors and the hospitals and losing their husbands.
Yeah, I actually have some personal experiences close to my family with that too, and I don't understand. I mean, what is there anything that can justify this behavior by the big wigs at the
there's no
AMA and the CDC and all of those folks?
Was there justification for human experimentation by the Nazi criminals? Even if they were doctors, even if it was the doctor that was the spokesman for the government, that was the promoted expert to the people, even if it was someone called Joseph Mengele that was supposed to be the final answer on anything, I don't care if what he says. Even if he says that, if it's not true, it's not true. We got randomized controlled trials backing up what I'm talking about. I'm not just, and it's from Oxford University, it's from reputable sources. Not me. I'm not giving my opinion. I'm giving scientific fact.
So where do we go from here? What can we do moving forward to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, or the things that are still ongoing? They're talking about these variants or whatever.
Yeah.
What can we do moving forward to right this ship and to take these bad actors out of the system and make choices on our own?
Well, there's a lot of things that need to be corrected, but my immediate goal is to save lives.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things that need to be done, but right now, standing in the gap, the pandemic has fizzled.
Right. They're trying to revive it.
They're trying really hard. You know, they said a month ago that 10% of what we're seeing of COVID cases was the Delta strain, the Delta variant, and now they're saying it's over 60%. I got good news. Everybody's recovering that's being treated, whether it's the Delta variant or not, if they're treated with effective treatment strategies, including budesonide, aspirin, clarithromycin, and, you know, some people say ivermectin. But I'm saying that we are not helpless or hopeless. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like, even though the Delta variant is out there, that as long as someone's treated and not denied appropriate treatment, that they're going to die. They're recovering. And so I'm really encouraged, Brian, if we're seeing over 60%, it doesn't seem like the treatment is discriminating. Right. It doesn't seem like it's being that it's saying, oh no, it's the Delta variant, I'm not going to work this time. Right. We're seeing people recover. And there are other tools out there as well, other medicines that are effective tools that can help complement this, but some people in their mind might think that budesonide is a silver bullet for COVID.
Right. And I heard you on the phone talking to some people before. I hope you don't mind. I wasn't really eavesdropping, but I was just fascinated by the advice that you were giving. And you mentioned something about a silver bullet. Is that what you were talking about, the budesonide? So
some people have considered budesonide. Some people might consider something that prevents 90% of hospitalizations, ER visits, or urgent care visits, proven by a randomized controlled trial by Oxford University, the oldest university in the English-speaking world, a silver bullet for a disease if it can prevent 90%. They might consider that a silver bullet. But I'm just saying that it's effective and it's good news, and we're not helpless. And you need to demand it for your loved one if they have COVID.
So what does a average citizen do if a doctor just refuses to give them that? I know you mentioned that in that story you were talking about with the recovery. What did they? You said they got a lawyer. Is that the only option we have?
Unfortunately, this is the time that we're in. Wow. Unfortunately, this is the world we're living in at this moment, where there is craziness, where you have to have many times legal representation for your rights to be acknowledged. But you also have another tool. You can demand an ethics committee consult from the hospital if your loved one's in the hospital. Ethics committee consult is the term. And then you have their attention. And then you can say, I want to talk about a treatment option for my loved one. And you could quote facts about the STOIC trial, the principal trial. You could look at budesonideworks.com if you can't remember all this, and you can look at the link to the journal, the Saudi Journal of Anesthesia, showing what budesonide nebulizer treatments will do for someone that has acute lung injury and acute respiratory distress syndrome. And you can educate that doctor. And if that doctor doesn't think he's God, if that doctor is willing to look at science and facts and not withhold something that's reasonable, then you might get that medicine for your loved one. And I'm seeing over and over people live and not die when that happens.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear. I know they're trying to push this reality, this false reality of helplessness and hopelessness and just doom and gloom. They're lightening up a little bit, but like I said, LA County went back with the mask mandates again about a week ago. So they're trying to fire this thing up again, and it's just so heartbreaking, and it's just so unnecessary.
I'm going to say, independent of that, here's a thought. Crazy people will say crazy things.
Right. That's true. Well, you know what? I appreciate you taking the time to come in. Do you want to give the website out again?
Again, budesonideworks.com, budesonideworks.com. And there's a providers tab, there's validation as a tab. There's many tabs there that you can look at. A third party made this website. It's not mine, but it has useful information. And don't give up. Sometimes you have to fight like a Flynn for your loved one in the hospital.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Great interview. Lots of good information. I learned a lot. So appreciate all you're doing, and we'll get the message out there, and we'll get this thing going, man. And
let's save some
hopefully,
lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Brian Sr., Political Truths 832. I'm out.